The Ring of Daenthar Dween, Book 13. Many battles, Ioland, rattles. Secrets belong to man alone, being gifted with reason and need, but being so blind to the cause of truth, and therefore the secrets which they keep condemn them to a life of little joy, as they cling to these. Bright jewels in their eyes, but in reality mud, which they think will buy them kingdoms tomorrow by keeping them so close today. Foolish are such men, wasting their reason and purity of their hearts with secrets, when in truth they are better served and will serve better when they freely speak that which they hold dear, and can proclaim loudly to all the world that peace which they withheld from it. For beings made from soul alone do not hold secrets. They are wise and hold the truth before them always. Nor do they make war upon each other, steal or lie. Indeed, man makes his needs secret, from which arise both shame and fear, and come to blows with his fellows because he cannot reveal the stone which weighs upon his heart, placing himself in thraldom for a dream. Domhnall's wounds were not healed, and the long winter resting in distant chambers of the hall of his mothers was spent growing in his bitterness, as he wished for some small part of the honor given to the many warriors about him. And as the snows melted and the flowers bloomed over the fields, all the wee Agla were called forward to prepare a host for war against the Daona bandits. His mother Sherday, though not a warrior, would lead those men, as his father led her guard. On the eve of departure Ioland came, dressed for his last hours of comfort before hardships, to his son, and he spoke not unharshly. Boy, you lay here wounded while your people go to war against a foe unlike any before faced. You are strong of body and of will, yet for your foolishness you languish here. You are the child of the high Telach Sherday, famed for her justice, and together we have set this island right after the burning. These legacies will be passed on to you, yours for all time, a pillar to hold you up, a sword to strike with, a shield to guard you against all foes. You should be with your people, who are yours to rule, and face battle that you may keep your place. I am going, and you should have walked by my side. Never again fail your people so, and be there for them, regardless of your wounds, always. The youth had no answer, and the captain left the chamber. So ashamed was he that he soon fell into a fever and dreamed of troubled things, whips and chains, wolves and iron, blood and fire, drink and song. At the end of all his visions there was a man, simple and plain, weathered and grey, in brown robes garbed, and he spoke in a kindly voice. I am named Jacob, and was born in a land so distant you know not its name. Rolling hills mark my home, valleys and olive trees. I was born into a time of great trouble, after the great empire had fallen, and when I was young, raiders took me and made me a slave. I was beaten and starved, made to grow food for foul men who reduced me. I escaped after many years of humiliation, pursued by hounds and horses. Desperate and tired, my final weary steps brought me to the threshold of a church. My pursuers dared not seize me there, though I lay breathless just beyond the door. It was the wrath of the good God which they feared. His power spared me from them. The brothers of the church clothed me, taught me, and sent me into the world to ease what suffering I could. I returned to those who had harmed me, and by his grace they could harm me no longer, and I brought them to the light of love. They freed those they held in bondage, and gave to them much of what they had. Proud I was for my labor, but I desired to think on his nature, and asked my superiors that I be permitted to be a hermit. They sent me to the rock Scarmeline, that I might prepare the way for holy brothers to come to Ioland. I raised the chapel and built the round homes, for which I am called Jacob the builder, as I laid the foundation. Death came to me in the place I knew it would. I saw a poor man turned to walking night by greed insatiable, and I pitied him. He slew me, and darkness consumed me, swirling suffering in the howling void. But soon after I was freed from my prison, and was admitted into the light a second time. When the youth woke from his troubled dreams, the host had left for war, and only Gregory remained to watch over the wee Agla, and many hours he tended to the youth. The fever broke, and his wounds seemed not so terrible as before, and the bishop suggested to him a walk among the fields which lay between the hall and the forest surrounding, a journey which the boy took with a walking stick to support him. As they walked, the good Bishop Gregory spoke comforting words. All Ioland has gone to face a foe unlike any it has seen before, called over the eastern waves by some unknown voice. Yet you remain here among the young, the old, and the women. Only a few warriors remain to keep the peace here, yet you were not a warrior alone. You are also one day to become a Teloch, king of a people, and there is more to such work than iron and blood. These people are fearful, and look to the horizons hoping and dreading to spy a messenger. Look after them, for they were entrusted to you, and it matters little in this labor that your body carries great scars, your mind is unwounded. The youth was relieved, for in his mind he had placed the burden of the defense of his people entirely upon himself, and was glad to hear that there was a labor which he could give himself to that would protect them. Much of their walk was then taken up by Gregory speaking on the good God, but as they prepared to return to the hall that the youth might begin to lead his people, the grass froze in the breeze, and the wind no longer rustled the trees, and the buzzing and chirping of insects in the grass was silenced as the bird-song stopped mid-note. Gregory turned quickly and scanned the forest, feeling the power which he had once felt on a dark night on a distant isle. There, at the eaves, stood Ioland watching, dressed in white, her golden hair tumbling to her waist. Any who knows stories of Ioland would know her at a glance, and Gregory froze along with all the world at her presence. He knew well the sight of her, and had looked to the horizon for the one he had failed since the day she vanished beneath her husband's howe. As he looked upon her, he was struck with wonder. It seemed she had not aged a day since their last meeting, her face etched with the same grief it had carried into Baith lands. She watched them unmoving some time before turning away and vanishing into the forest. The grass and the leaves moved once more as the music of the creatures of field and forest resumed without missing a note. Gregory stood still a long time after before speaking to the youth. There walks Ioland, golden light of a long past time, a face I had not dreamed to see again. It seems strange, but time has not placed a hand on her, and she seems to be, as I last saw her, the same grief on her face. How I wish I could speak to her. I would try with all my wit and wisdom to draw that grief from her. Old friends deserve our sympathy. Oh, that she would have suffered that pain here on Ioland and not beneath the mounds, for then the grief would have not consumed her, held in check by love. I am sure that she has come before us, for she is ashamed for commanding such violence against you, or perhaps to remind you that you should not harm those beasts which are hers, perhaps for both reasons. Remember always that it is not your parents who rule this island, but her. She is Malach's daughter, and it is to her that Ioland owes its allegiance. Honor her who has lost much, for she by right of blood and by mastery of magic is the high Telach. Yet remember her story as a lesson also, that you will lose much of what you hold, and grief will come to you. Do not hide from it. Grief is love searching for what it once held, and is not evil, but it turns ever inward, and after too long gives itself to rot. Come now, princeling, let us rest and find a way to rule these people given to you. They returned to the hall, and the youth sat at the highest mead bench. Gregory sat beside him, and they dispensed with the labor of the day, to which the youth was well suited, eager to learn the proper task of governing. Away, over the fields, the great Aeolish host had assembled, and moved slowly toward the Daona raiders, taking great care that they would not fall into a sudden trap. For the Daona were known to care little for the proper ways of war, preferring to attack their foes in sudden raids and return into the mists. Indeed, as they approached the hill of Hala where the raiding host was known to be, they saw signs of their foe and knew their march was marked. The Daona knew of the coming host and began their war council. Craucon the Biter was permitted to lead them, and his plan was thus. Craucon the Biter knew not why the mists lay unmoving over that land. They could see neither Hala nor the many barrows which surrounded it. Yet even had they known it would be the home of the great and vengeful spirit of the King Malach, they would not have feared it, fearing only their dark gods. Into the mist were placed 500 fierce warriors, who had come to that land with the high king, and when battle was joined, they were to spring forth from the fog and startle the Aeolish. The rest of their many thousands would hold fast over the field in a shield wall, whose left was guarded by the mists. They had no horses but many archers. Many thousands waited for the approach of their foe. And the Aeolish came, their host strong and eager, their Telachs careful not to bring them into ambush. Their horse discovered the Daona and alerted the high Telach, who brought her host swiftly to the field when she learned the Daona had dug no trenches. The Aeolish came to the field early in the morning and set their order swiftly. The long-waiting Daona did this also, and the two hosts faced each other across the field, as the sun reached her prime. Yet the Daona host had no patience, not when led by a man of such poison as they were, and having waited many hours they broke their line and charged against the Aeolish, who waited in a perfect wall. The storm broke, lightning and thunder, wooden ships broke upon the ice, shouts and snarls of fearsome beasts set against each other, the steady drop of a thick red rain. War. The Aeolish gave no ground against the axe blows, and the Daona began to tire against the wall. Craucon the Biter gave the signal for his hidden blades to burst forth from the fog and strike the Aeolish, but these came not. All the Daona knew the signal, and when warriors failed to appear they lost heart, for it seemed the work of dark Aeolish magic to these superstitious people that their warriors did not appear from the fog. The Daona broke and fled the field. 700 of their men lay dead upon the field, and the Aeolish lost only 50. This was named the Second King's Battle, and it was glorious for the Aeolish. Long did they feast, high were their hearts, and though they had not defeated their foe, and the Daona host remained, they were greatly relieved. The Daona were afraid and weary, losing in 2 battles to a foe which they had defeated in many raids, who they saw as being poor warriors and beneath their own skill. The 4 kings of the raiders met in defeat. No song nor cheer lit their camp. The 3 kings raged over the battle made by Craucon the Biter. He was driven mad that the battle had gone so wrong, so little did he think of the people he faced. He gave his account of the battle before his peers, blaming the treacherous Aeolish for the failure of the Fog men to join the battle, for he believed the Aeolish were there waiting. The other kings voted to remove him from the command of the host before they each spoke in turn. Svoren Blackfingers spoke first. Such is all I have known at the hands of these cruel people. Our fair warriors seem to have been met only with defeat, though made of better iron. The Aeolish did not strike our men while concealed by the fog. Dark Aeolish magic, woven into the mists, took our warriors from us. This land begs for our cleansing hand to burn away the sickness. The Daona should avoid this place always. Never shall we return to the mists which lay heavy on those fields. We have learned from this battle that we must fight in the open, that they might not set traps against us. Our next battle king should remember this. Next to speak was fair Halvavar Brightstone, more calmly than the other kings. We have lost 1,000 men since we came to this land, a terrible amount inflicted upon us. In our next battle, we must be sure to hold our temper and keep our faith in our war plan. For twice our warriors have charged against the shield wall. Twice they were broken. We must set the field better, it is true, but we must also see to the morale of our men and ensure their discipline stands firm when battle between us is joined. Ever fewer my men have become, who held longest against the wall. There is still much to discover of the Aeolish, much for me to learn of how they set their battle. I am not desirous to lead the battle until I am certain of their minds. For our next battle, I suggest we give command of our armies to Ragnaros Eel Eater. He has sailed far by wind and wave, and knows how to hold his men together when the timbers creak and beasts circle the camp. Let him find value in our warriors. Let us hold them and not be swept from this rich land entire. The other kings agreed and began to plan their next battle. For though defeated twice by the Aeolish, they were warriors still, and knew many hardships. Their plan was such. They would retreat from the Aeolish host toward the falling waters of Aglach Ulmo. Their rear guard would be made to fight many small battles against the Aeolish, that the rest of the Daona could prepare a field of deep trenches to stop the horse and greater numbers of the Aeolish from breaking them. In such a narrow field, the Daona iron would burn hotter than the spears of their foe. After the battle waxed and waned, they would give signal to their men to fall back in good order, that they would not break, but know there was a time for them to leave the field. This plan, they agreed, was good, and horns were heard over the wet spring fields of Ioland. The Aeolish made no new plan. Victory made them sluggish. They celebrated in the camp of their enemy and donned their armor. They drank and ate the food of their foe. The Aeolish gave many gifts to Sherde and Ioland, hailing them as conquerors. When at last the Aeolish were prepared to continue the pursuit, 3 days had passed. Again the host moved slowly for fear the Daona laid traps behind them. So slow were the Aeolish that the Daona set to the rear guard grew bored waiting for them and returned to their fellows to aid the digging of the trenches. These were dug deep and wide, sharpened stakes set in them, an open space a mile wide between the trenches. Every day the Daona waited for their foe, they added to these defenses, every day becoming more formidable. When at last the Aeolish outriders found them, all work ended, and the fierce warriors rested, preparing for the coming battle. The Aeolish made their camp 2 miles distant from their foe, watching their movement. A double guard was set and changed with every hour. Men slept lightly. Morning came, and with it rain, which poured over the field until well past noon. The kempt pasture turned to a mire. All thoughts in the camps were miserable in those hours, and when at last the storm clouds moved on, both hosts knew no battle could be fought before the field dried. Thus the hosts faced each other across the fields, hurling barbed words and jokes at each other. for the Aolish and Daona shared a similar tongue and could understand each other with some difficulties. The raiders took great care that their trenches kept their form, while the Aolish took greatest care for maintaining their guard. After 2 defeats, the Daona kings watched ever that their plans be not useless, but the Aolish inquired after the affairs of their house. Ioland spoke to his wife. Sherde, light of Ioland, I rejoice at the coming days and think only of the future, when we may rule our island in peace. How hard we have worked these last 17 years to build your vision, how far we still are. Half finished is our work. I wonder if Malach was so weary when he ruled for only 5 years. Not so blessed was he compared to us. Indeed, Neola fair was not near as capable as my own wife. You, my love, are fairer than the island in full bloom of spring. Blessed also are we that we have a son and not a daughter, for Ilulian was ill-made for following her father, but our son is a warrior. When he finished speaking, they both paused for a moment, for it seemed that the wind outside was howling in rage. The earth beneath them trembled. The camp of the Aolish fell still in fear of the omen, and the many monks of the good God who traveled with the host began fervent prayer. The winds calmed, and the earth grew still, and the moment passed. Sherde spoke in return. Husband, it would seem the destined fate of the High Talach to battle endlessly to hold their people together. Only I and the Hawk King both saw wars over every parcel of land owned. Hardly could this be called peace. Malach alone faced no war when he reigned, the true High Talach of our people. I thank you for the tenderness of your words, and you have always been a kind man to me, a caring husband. Greatest of all, you have always given to me counsel and loyalty, taking care that your people are led by the best course. You brought to these lands the many monks of the good God. They have taught us many things and have married our tongue to their letters, that forever after the Aolish will be a reading people. In no story our people tell will I be a cruel ruler or poor High Talach. Yet in our time together I have kept a secret from you, one which I fear to speak, for I fear it has the power to ruin us. Of such malignant spirit is the whisper of the truth that I fear it would end our people. I fear this mistake, long since made, cannot be undone now, and we are set by fate to walk into our death. I hope that there will be some path laid by the good God for us to escape. There is nothing left to us now but to have faith. Ioland begged to know her secret, but Sherde refused him, and nothing more was spoken between husband and wife. Lightly did all the camps sleep that night. Morning came to find the earth dry, and the Aolish quickly gave word to form their line. Bells rang and monks chanted holy prayers to see warriors safe home, their incense mingling with the morning mist, which hung low in the field between the two hosts. The Daona saw their foe forming, and so also prepared for battle, donning their armor and sacrificing many animals on crude altars to dark gods, divining the coming battle from their guts. These were found to be favorable, and the Daona gave a great cheer as they formed their battle line. Across the field they faced each other, trading insults and shouts until the invisible hand which had held the wave back set it free, and it roared to the shore. The Aolish were swift in covering the field, hitting against the Daona just where they planned the battle. Such was the impact that the Daona were forced backward several steps, but they were not broken and held firm. Slowly the line grew steady as warriors hid behind their shields and struck quick blows. Long the two boars struggled, their horns locked together, the earth groaned beneath their feet, neither could toss the other. The push at the center of the slaughter was so strong that shield broke at the weight, and men at the line were carried off their feet, their legs flailing to find the earth again as their arms swung wildly to bring iron to flesh. Push and pull, break and blood, weight and death, these continued on and on until it seemed that men's lives existed for this battle alone. At last the signal was given, and the Daona gave ground as the ice and snow which lie over rivers break in the spring. Slowly, then all together. But they kept their order, their camp prepared for their withdrawal, and the Aolish soon wearied of battling a foe which was defeated but not shattered. The Daona escaped the battle intact as the Aolish returned to the battlefield to take what they could from the dead. Again they celebrated a great victory, but their tables were more meager than ever before, and men drank less mead to celebrate the third king's battle. In the camp of the Daona there was much rejoicing, for they had held their own against a foe who had won 2 victories over them. There was much talk that night of why the Aolish had defeated them, when they had seen victory over all other peoples who dwelled in sight of the waves. Some said that the Aolish committed outrageous sacrifices. Some that the Aolish could speak to spirits of the land, and these led their battles. Some that the Aolish Telach held in her possession dark magic, which could order men's fates as she desired. That in coming to this island the Daona were at the mercy of this weapon. How much their kings listened to these rumors, how much they feared the high Telach who could hold such a wild people together, how much they desired victory over such a foe and such a people. As others reveled, they plotted the next battle, when they would not give flight but stand until they were victorious. In the third king's battle 400 Daona fell in the mighty press, as 600 Aolish perished. Much blood was there to spill. Further the 2 hosts danced, until the Daona wetted their feet in the turbulent Aglach Ulmo, and could go no further. Many of the warriors who remained at Tel Drim came to join the host, leaving only a small number behind to continue the siege. This battle was given to Halvavar Brightstone to command, and he was ready for this task, observing the nature of Aolish warfare in the previous battles. Though he could move his host away from the waters, either to Aglach Salam or the walls of Tel Drim, he resolved there to fight, because his men would have nowhere to run. Even the best swimmer would be dashed against the rocks, the river battered. With their new spirit and nowhere to flee to, the Daona would fight as they never had before. The Aolish came to that place. Discovering their foe trapped against the rushing water, they made camp and began celebration, for they saw a foe destined to be crushed in the coming battle. The Daona looked across the field at the light thrown by the fires, at the sound of their merriment, and they desired to be there in that warmth and joy. Often had they feasted so in their home across the wind and waves. They came to Ioland because they wanted something from that land, and staring at the happy Aolish reveling in their ruin reminded them of their want. A hunger gnawed at their guts and sharpened their minds. A dangerous weapon is desire. Dawn came as it ever does, throwing golden light far over the land, and it found the 2 hosts facing each other, their arms prepared for war and their shields formed a long wall. The 4 banners of the Daona kings stood at the fore of their host. Throughout the Aolish host word was passed along. The high Telach gave command, and death was once more to walk freely among the earth. Yet they did not charge forward into his jaws as they had in the third great battle, moving slowly to cover the distance, staying together that they would hit in one solid wave, drowning their foe. They halted not far from the Daona, and both hosts traded barbed words at each other before the sky opened with a storm of shot and red rain wetted the earth. The Daona weathered the storm beneath their round shields, and then the Aolish charged. Charging over the short field, they hit with the sound of crushing rock and breaking ice. Many felt the bite as iron drank deeply. The 2 beasts walked once more over the earth, their horns locked, as with all their might they tried to throw the other, one dark and marked with cruel runes carved in blood, the other bright, circled by doves. Though the monks chanted their prayer and gave blessing to the blade, the good God did not overthrow the heathen beast, for he had plans for them still. The Daona gave little ground, for they could not flee. The water would swallow those who fled. The sun rose to her high seat, and from that place saw that the hosts were still locked together. Exhausted warriors could barely strike at their foe, instead leaning against their shields as they tried to break the shield wall with a push. But many thousands were in the push, and gave their strength to the overthrow. Through all hours of the struggle, though they threw themselves against each other with all the rage and hatred which the hearts of men can muster, the lines remained steady. Men were exhausted, their hearts weak and weary. Those in the rear began to pull away from the battle and rest themselves, and when they had recovered some of their strength, they returned to relieve those still battling, who then rested and pulled the wounded away from the field. Those warriors gave battle beyond their strength, beyond their wits, beyond their souls. The sun grew weary of her high place and lowered herself into the sea as her sister rose over Ioland. Both watched as men struggled in the dying light, death and blood staining the ground in unending, twisting horror, as though the fiend had opened the gates to his domain and spilled the suffering he made upon the earth. The twilight saw them entwined still, but as the night fell and the light vanished from the world, the long battle ended. No more could the warriors throw themselves against each other. The two great beasts broke apart, their horns broken and blood running down their sides. Neither had given, neither was victorious. Much blood was wasted. In the camp of the Daona there was little celebration, but much energy, as they had held their foe at bay in a full day of battle. They now prepared to escape the Aeolish host encircling by cover of night. The camp was broken up with swiftness. Such powerful warriors were they, that they prepared for a long march after only a short rest. When all things were prepared, Halvavar Brightstone lifted a great horn and blew a blast which carried its ghostly call over the land, and fog and mist poured over the earth that all things were hidden. Weary Aeolish heard the call and cowered, stopping their ears and hiding behind their fires. And in the gloom, the endless stream of sea-walking warriors escaped. Their quick feet passing over the ground sounded to the Aeolish as the procession of ghosts from Hala, angry spirits of their fathers, and they grew more afraid. Ioland and Shirday feared in their great tent. The many monks who served the high Telach thought some terrible devilry was unleashed upon the land, and prayed to the good God that he might dispel the fog. The sun rose over Ioland, as she vowed to do forever, and wounded Aeolish left their camp to prepare for another day of struggle and slaughter, but found the field empty. Witchcraft it was to them that their foe could escape them in the mists. The monks performed many rituals to cleanse the earth of the darkness, which had been called to give succor to the warriors of Daona. The Aeolish were stunned by the vanishing, and spent the day sharing rumors among themselves, their arms idle while their Telachs held urgent war councils, discussing where the foe had gone and what powers they might have which could thwart both the Baith who ruled Ioland unseen and the good God who ever guards his children. Afraid they were of a foe who had not yet defeated their host, afraid that their dark gods gave them power in Ioland which they had never held before. Yet the Aeolish were warriors still, and with their land threatened, they would not wait in their homes to be defeated by the Daona. The many wounded were left behind and told to rest. Those fit for a final battle gathered together in pursuit of the Daona host, in number many thousands reduced. The Daona marched south, first in their flight before turning their feet toward the sun and passing through the land between the Aglach Telocha and the sea. The Aeolish followed after them, keeping the tracks ever before their feet as they went. But the high Telach knew her host was weary, and so did not press her people to their limit, knowing that they would reach the Daona wherever they crossed the river. Yet the Daona did not seek to cross it, for they had many wounded also, and they were led now by Svoren Blackfingers, who was eager for a final battle against the people he hated so. Indeed, though Halvavar Brightstone had led his host in stalwart defense, the other kings chose for another to lead the next battle, that none could gain more renown. So the Daona took their place and prepared the field for their battle, and then waited. Sherday's Aeolish host soon found the waiting Daona, and made their camp not far from their foe. They made the camp well guarded, digging trenches and planting stakes that the Daona could not use their phantoms to come against them as they slept. The monks took great care to bless each stake, each blade, each shield, to bring low their foe. The Telochs came together in the tent of Sherday and Ioland to eat, drink mead, and plan their battle for the morrow. They spoke and drank and spoke, and gave to their host much to drink, that their spirits would be lifted. When mead casks were slain, when only bones remained uneaten, the Telach of the wee Contara asked the high Telach if battle could really be won against a foe which seemed to grow stronger with every passing day, and Shirday told them, "This is a combat which I have never fought before. No campaign to bring together Ioland was this tiring or saw so many dead. This kind of war is new to me, and I shall not wage another. Yet I think our victory, though hard in winning, will be given to us. For many reasons I think this. In struggle against the breaking surf, clawing against the waves, raising my hands to hide from the rain, I know this to be the storm which plagued Malach so long ago. It is here, the long foretold suffering of our people. But we will weather it, for Malach was told long ago by the wise man of Ioland that the people of Ioland united would stand strong against it. We have this with us, as Malach once had with him, and we will survive this. Fear no darkness. Yet the other reason why we have little to fear is the gift given Malach so many years ago, when we were all young. Indeed, though I was but a girl and never saw the hill of Hala when it stood in its perfection, I learned the stories of that grand feast, where Neola, Ilulian, and Malach hosted the greatest warriors to ever walk our land, mutton and veal and swine, mead endless, peace, the end of the wars between the Aeolish, and above all, the boon given to the great king. Of all gifts best given, the signet ring which bears the heart was forged from many wonders and bound to the blood of Malach, and the name the Ring of Dainthar Dween. It was given a power by the wondrous things from which it was forged, and by the design of its creator, the wise men of Ioland, that the good in one's life would increase always, and those who held it would be remembered by the Aeolish for all time. Ever in the minds of our people will be the names Malach, Mebebd, Keldiar, Eoin, Gallion, Etheldor, Ethelwald, the dark hunter whose name we choose to forget, and Shirday, high Telach of the Aeolish people for many years. In my youth, I found the ring of Dainthar Dween on Scarmeline, beneath the leaves of the dark wood tree, and took it that I might return it to Ethelwald, but he had died in his battle with the darkness, and so I kept it for my own. It brought to me a fortune beyond any which has ever been possessed by another, for Malach ruled over the Aeolish people 5 years, and I have ruled much longer than that. Malach had a wife fair, but my husband is greater, for he shares my business and gives guidance to me. We shall not fail on the field tomorrow. The ring which has given me so much will not fail in this hour, and fate, which has ever attended me, will see her design completed, and the Aeolish at last at peace. Fear not the darkness. It will pass over our land, and its memory will soon be forgotten. Gaze upon the gold blade, which will cleave our enemies. Gaze upon the boon of Malach, and know that you are safe. Go from this place, and tell the people of your Tella of this guarantee. Prepare them for a great victory. As she spoke, she revealed from beneath her clothes the ring of Malach. Noble heart set upon it, and all gazed in wonder, for it seemed to them that they looked upon a forgotten part of their own history, as though Malach himself would soon join them and lead them to glorious battle. Sherdej showed each of them in turn, and they marveled at the craft which forged it, and noted the many fates of its many wearers. Only Ioland did not look upon it, diverting his eyes, and when his wife revealed the source of her good fortune, he grew pale, and though he spoke in but a whisper to the many drunk men, each heard him, and marked his words as though they were told by a wise man. You have each heard the story of the great feast at the hall of Hala, and wish to have stood there, for in your youth you were small, and not brought before the high Telach, desiring nothing more than to be so great that his sweeping eye would roam over Ioland and see only you, that you would be seated beside him. My wife was only 3 at the time. I was at that feast. My father served as a guard to my wife's, and as a boy of 10, I was there also. I can see it clear in my mind even now, as I had never before or since seen such a gathering. In my memory, I see the bent wise man standing before the hall, presenting the glinting gold, which was the ring you now hold. But I also hear 3 curses which were laid upon it. Kelloch the sword laid down the first, before he knew that which he was cursing. The curse he wove, which was repeated by all voices in that hall, even mine, was that those that held what belonged to Malach and his heirs would see all their possessions destroyed, their designs wrought, their desire turned to ash. Twice more he cursed the Aeolish, but these did not fall on the ring. Then the ring was revealed and gifted to the high Telach by the wise man, who often advised the Wheelite Saul, and placed upon it the second curse, that the ring would bring good fortune and ever increase that which the wearer owns, but only to the blood of Malach would it give these things not in excess, not to such levels which would bring the wearer giddiness and Erebus. All fortune given to those beyond his blood would be taken from those who received it, and leave them wanting. The third curse, and made more powerful by the power of his blood, was the curse which the high Telach Malach placed upon the ring and all the Aeolish, that the boon which he was given would always leave the hands of those not born to it, and find its way to his heirs, taking with it all the fortune it had raised. In that same curse he bound the others, his blood-given strength to the 3 fell curses. Wife, I warn you now that the 3 curses will soon begin their work and take from you all which you have come to possess. Nothing can spare you from the fall. Surrendering the ring will not, and using it will only raise you higher, that your fall be further. The only course, if you wish to keep your place, great Telach, is to find Ilulian, for she must still live, and place in her hands the ring of her father. The Telachs listened, and when he finished they turned to Sherdej, waiting her response. The High King watched her husband, and chose her words with great care. You were there among heroes of a long-dead age, and heard 3 curses spoken by passion, by wisdom, by magic which runs in blood, bound to the boon. If what you speak is true, my love, then mighty curses are set to fall upon me and lay me so low, and I cannot stop it unless I surrender the ring. but how can I go to war without it? I must either go into war without my fortune secured, or with the vengeance of 3 curses set against me. Which is better to choose? My husband, I think I know the answer. For though the storm clouds hang over my head, and promise rain and lightning to wash away all I have, these storms have been gathering for 10 years and 5 more, and never have they fallen. If I must march to battle unguarded by the ring, which has brought me unceasing victory, or wager my people on one more day of fortune, then I will keep the ring and offer all I have to the hands of fate. And should tomorrow's sun be born and die but see us victorious, then at nightfall I will leave behind all things to search Ioland for the rumor of her golden hair, though my body wastes away and I never hear human voices again, never resting until I return that which belongs to her alone. Yet tomorrow I am forced to take the risk and see what fate has placed in store for me, as my doom is to decide possible calamity over certain defeat. The choice is made. With that, the Telochs resumed their drinking and admiring the ring, while Ioland retired to pray. Such was the state of the Aeolish camp. The Daona camp was quieter, as they gave sacrifice to the dark demons which marched in the guise of gods, the one-eyed, the sky rider, the liar, the wounded warrior. In the tent of their kings, however, debate waxed as the tide. First spoke Crauchen the biter, grown wrathful at seeing the success of the other kings in battle and his failing to gain victory. It seems that now is the time of Svoren Blackfingers to lead into battle our great host, which, though in size diminished from our first landing, numbers still in many thousands. Well may he lead us in war, a task which he will undoubtedly do well in, for now the Aeolish are much fewer in number and weaker than they have ever been. Indeed, I am surprised that Blackfingers has waited so long for this moment, when it was he who demanded our sails head for this shore from his hatred of the Aeolish people, as they had broken his mind and body. I think it was because he desired final victory to be his own, as we failed and struggled against them. How brave is he to stay in the wooded halls at the mouth of the raging river when we battle across Ioland, when our blood runs free over the earth. Are we truly so foolish as to continue our trading of command when our victory is assured tomorrow? Surely it is best for us to share the command and have equal pride from battle. Why should he lead? He who called us to this place, that we might gain glorious conquest here, but who has avoided all battle and glory? The quailing coward deserves this not. His words were harsh, and their speaking caused the drawing of blades, as Svoren sought to revenge himself for them. But the other kings pulled them apart, for if one slayed the other, their host would fall into war. Ragnaros Eel-eater spoke, seeking calm. What violent people are we, often falling into these battles, but there is more to be gained from peace tonight. Tomorrow the lives will be staked on one meeting between 2 hosts which desire to rule this land. If we are to fight each other, then let it be the day after, when we stand as rulers. Remember the many thousands who live in Daona, where land is little and there is not enough for feeding. Remember that they need our victory, that they may have farms of their own. We 4 shall make our kingdoms in this green isle, and the people here will serve us. But this dream requires the overthrow of their king. Cease this violence and work together as brothers, and put aside your quarrel. For neither of you has led this host well, and can therefore find no cause to blame the other. Halvor Brightstone spoke next, seeking to forge together the many kings of the host for the coming battle. When we committed ourselves to this campaign, we swore oaths to our dark gods to hold true to each other. Break these bonds not, Swift will fall retribution from them as a bolt of blood fire. Long suffering we will receive from spears and hooks. Forget not these oaths, and forget not our dreams. It is the turn of Svoren to lead us, for Krauken led us in the blood battle. Ragnaros led us in the learning battle. I led our host in the holding battle. Now it is time for Svoren to lead us. Whether to victory or slaughter is for him to decide. He will order our battle, and it will fall to us to ensure that the men we lead are ready, their arms sharp and their armor repaired, their hearts in the trim. Let us now listen to he who will lead us in the contest tomorrow, for surely he must have a plan. By his speaking, things were made calm in the tent. Krauken was a cruel man who followed closely the taboos of his dark gods, and feared above all else their judgment, falling silent as a chastised cur. And at last Svoren Blackfingers spoke, laying clear his plan for the coming battle, and falsehoods also, that their battles seemed small. Tomorrow comes a change. I can feel it as a rumble in my bones. I can taste it as the scent of rain rides on the wind at the front of the storm. Tomorrow all the world will be changed, and to our benefit. I have for you, dogs and men, a proper plan to guide victory for us, for I have watched your failures and have seen how to defeat our foe. In these 3 battles which we have lost, the Eolish have always come charging at us, while we, far-sailing warriors who have seen all forms of war, stand waiting for the wave. Go ask the stones along the shore how it feels to face a wave. Aye, the wave does all the battering and the rock is worn down. This time, however, we shall be the wave. The filth that calls this land home has seen as we grow ever stronger with each passing battle. They are already quivering at the thought of battle with us. But when we run at them and brandish our axes, our shields painted with terrible beasts, they will grow afraid of us and break after short battle. The wolf day comes, the crow day comes, the blood day, the warrior's day. Let us be ready for it. So confident am I in this plan that I have an offer for each of you regarding the coming day. There is much to be won, and when we stand victorious, I would see us abide by this pact. I offer you this deal, that I will gain exclusive rights to plunder the field and take from it all weapons and gold found. But in return, I offer to you all plunder found at the great hall of their king. Take what you desire from there. Many valuables, I think, will be found there, as for many years the Eolish gave their petty king much in tribute. Take from there all which you desire. A further gift I am prepared to give you, that when we stand as masters of this land, I will give to each of you the right of first picking when selecting kingdoms from this isle. I am ready to take whatever lands you deem unfit for yourselves and your people. All this I give in return for the pickings of a battlefield, desired for a token which these wretches took from me at my first visit to this place. Think now, kings, so confident am I in our coming triumph that I can offer the spoils of tomorrow. What say you to this, future rulers of this land? The kings heard him, and took not long in deciding on this offer, all thinking that while Svoren was hiding his true reasons for it, the promise of gold from the home of the Eolish king and choosing their kingdoms before him set fire to their greed. Thus the 2 hosts were prepared for the coming battle. Ragged and worn they both stood. Each man knew of another who had fallen in the war, knew the violence of blades, knew fate stood above them, prepared to cut many threads. But they could not leave that place, held fast by a promise known to them in their hearts, that when the dawning sun rose and light lit the field, all would be decided. The sound of drinking ceased, and the sounds of smithing ended. Silence fell over the world. The night was still. Dawn came furious, the horizon bleeding as the fierce stallion pulled the sun again into the sky, and silence was broken. Swift came the horns, fast were the rhythms of the war drums. Beneath them danced the fifes and reeds. Men rose in haste, donned their armor, and made final check of their arms. Many had what was to be their last meal on the green earth, taking their last from the earth which had raised them. Dew had not been burned from the grass as the two hosts made formation, their musicians playing furious melodies, banners floating in the breeze, the bright Aeolish color set against bloody Dayona cloth. It was a moment when man looked upon his brother, when all souls took one last look at the world, perfect as on the day of creation, before fortifying themselves, prepared for the slaughter, and the moment passed on, down the stream of time as another took its place. Music was lifted, war cries and insults joined them, chants, and the beating of spears on shields. Ioland was changed forever. The Dayona came running, fury in their limbs, and the Aeolish, though shocked for but a moment, answered them, charging across the field. Where they met was death, a thunderbolt sweeping the field and taking with it lives. There was no order to the battle, as there had been previously. Men pushed and retreated, lived and died, as fate chose who fell and when. Kings on both sides knew not how the battle was shaping. They could only see the death which they had brought to the land. Shirde wept at the sight and trembled from fear of the curse she knew to fall soon. Ioland watched the battle unfold and noted every cruelty which passed over the field, each tragedy as in a moment men lost all they had ever known, and he was disgusted with himself and knew he was only a man pretending at his station. Ragnaros Eel-Eater watched the many young men he had led to the island in search of land to feed hungry mouths across the cold sea die and found the taste bitter. Halvavar Brightstone was in the thickest fighting, and many Aeolish he struck down. But the battle seemed less joyful than other adventures he had led his men to, and it seemed that when he tasted blood on his tongue for the first time, it was bitter. Krauken the Biter pressed himself against the wall, hacking and slashing. Many times his blade bit his own blood, but little he cared, so long as those he had placed his hatred upon suffered. Svoren Blackfingers stood far removed from the pain he had brought to that field, and marked not the lives torn from the soil, nor the bodies marred by the blade. He felt only that in him which promised evermore to be taken from others and given to him. Shirde could not bear the slaughter any further, and tightened her shield straps, and drew her sword. She went into battle. The Aeolish had only adopted the use of kingly banners since the coming of the Dayona to their island, and used them not in the manner of kings over the waves in far distant lands. They did not follow the Aeolish king into war, but remained aloof, far in the rear. Nor did she enter the field with large retinue. Only 5 reliable warriors went with her. Her armor unadorned, and no crown of gold was set upon her helm. She joined the fray without bidding her husband farewell. In a battle such as this, in the crashing sea of souls, none can say how that high Telach met her death. But they who found the body after the fighting said her blade was broken in 2, and that which remained was notched many times. Her helm was split in 2 by the blow of some great axe. 14 wounds left her mangled, for not one had been less than fatal, and little remained of her. It was said by the Aeolish that Shirde came across a great berserker, who by dark magic could call the great strength of a bear to him, and though long they danced as axe and sword flashed between them, none can face a berserker long, none save the wielder of the bone-hilted blade. The high Telach of Ioland died unseen, the battle raged on. The slaughter continued as the sun neared her height, and the number of dead exceeded previous battles. Churning feet mixed blood with the earth into a mud which trapped the men who made it as spiders silk, leaving them helpless against the waiting web weaver. Oh, that men be born with such power to lay ruin against his fellow, what evils stalk his heart. So this battle went on without heroes, as madmen did their utmost to steal souls from their home. Eventually, the Eolish broke before the fury of the Northmen, for their axes cut deeper and their rage burned hotter. The Eolish fled the field at midday, but the Daona did not follow them far. The many bands which formed the Eolish host returned to their homes as the Daona scoured the field for their reward. The body of Ioland was found by monks as they ran, and though none knew how he was slain, he was buried in a small way beside the Aglach Telocha. The king's fifth battle ended, a slaughter unlike any battle before, and the Daona stood masters of the isle. According to their agreement, the spoils were given to Svoren Blackfingers and the Fellera Brechte, and as he inspected the treasure, Svoren seemed to discard all pieces of gold until he gave a shout of glee and lifted a bloodied ring, quickly setting it upon his finger. End. Book 13. The Ring of Dane Thardwine was written and performed by Michael Frutig. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the project on Patreon. Supporters get text files of each chapter, as well as access to Q&A posts, other writing projects, such as flash fiction and chapters of other works. Go to patreon.com/michaelfrutig for more. patreon.com/MICHAELFRUTIG. Thank you.